We're down here in the MG and Invited British Sports Cars compound, if you will. We've got a whole shed dedicated to themselves here at Winter Motor Raceway. We're down here with Trevor Lindsay, who has a Triumph GT6. Trevor, tell us a little bit about this car.
Well, it's a 1971 GT6. The GT6 is a hard-top Spitfire, basically, but always had a six-cylinder in it rather than a four-cylinder. I've owned this car for the last 20 years. Rear end is nothing like the original rear end. It was built up for Group 2B, which it runs in now, or Mark Sports. Front end is very standard. It runs a Triumph six-cylinder motor, which is fuel injected. They were injected, the 2.5 litres, although the GT6 only came out with a 2 litre originally. So it's just a 2 litre bored out and stroked differently.
And what's it like having the opportunity with MG and Invited British Sports Cars to be able to take it out onto a track and flex its muscles?
Well, it's fantastic, particularly in this group of racing. I mean, I come from South Australia, and there is no one like this to race with in South Australia. You're racing with Porsches and Lamborghinis and Ferraris, TVRs. I mean, this is a 1960s, 70s vehicle. I need to travel to come into a group to race with that of a similar ilk, I suppose, and very friendly group to race with. Love it, and the social side of it is great. So that's why I keep doing it.
Can't wait to see it out on track today, mate. All the best.
Thank you very much.
Great to have Trevor Lindsay on track. He had a fantastic run at Sandown in that Triumph. It was a really good watershed moment for that race car. He came home with a victory and was running right at the front all throughout the whole weekend. And in fact, he now leads the MG and Invited British Car Championship on 94 points over Michael Trathen in that fantastic little blue midget, who is on 82 points. Danny Siama on 81. Mike Roddy, was great to see Mike bring the Jag out. Did have some issues with it towards the end of the weekend on 70 points. Michael Wood on 67, Anthony Vollebrecht on 56 points. Keith Ondaatje in the number 40 Stag out on track as well inside the 10. Phil Chester, a massive welcome back to MG and Invited British Cars. This is one of the more exciting cars across the entire landscape of the Victorian racing scene here at the 888 Home Loans. 1-800-188-00 for 888 Home Loans. Always love watching the number 72 Multi-Power MG BGT V8 car around here, and Phil has been absent in this car, although he has been running his green car as well, but the big banger has been absent for about 14 or 15 months. Simon Elliott right alongside in the MGB, and that is a completely different specification of car. Keith Ondaatje for Team Triumph Racing, the Triumph Stag out of 3. Out of 4 is Michael Trathen in the MG midget, and currently sitting second in the championship. Danny Siama out of 5, Anthony Vollebrecht in the number 48. Then we go back to John Makem in the Bennett Signs MG midget. Gordon Bunyan in the Triumph Spitfire, the number 78 there as well. We go back to John Ilworth, Greg White, Trevor Dunford, Alana Ondaatje in the second of the Team Triumph Racing Stags. Bruce Condon, Robert Splatt from Splatt Engineering Checkered Flag Stables in his Triumph TR6. Peter Rose, and back to the Triumph TR7 of Jeffrey St John Cox with Jane Vollebrecht in the MGB down the tail end of the field. Interestingly enough, Dan McCarthy, no entry or no mention of Trevor Lindsay there.
Yeah, the series leader talking to Matt Dunlop earlier today, talking about how great it'll be to get the car out on track. Unfortunately for race number 1, it's not on track, so opens the door a little bit for the man sitting second in the championship, Michael Trathen, defending champion, coming out of position number 4 in car number 1. That's certainly a machine to look out for, and so is this one. Chester back for the second round, missed round number 1. When this car is working, it is almost impossible to beat. It really is. Chester is so very fast in this machine.
I tell you what though, that magnificent looking open top variant right beside him on the grid. This will be very, very interesting to see how the number 55 can go with it. Simon Elliott, certainly the wheelman, 5 litre MGB. Similar in spec, I guess you'd say, looking at that engine capacity there. So the 55 is an MGB 5 litre. And we're looking very closely at the number 72 of Phil Chester for Monty Power, the MGB GT V8 5.6 litre. And there's the spot. We're just watching on the right-hand side, driver's right line on the grid, row number 3, and that is where that TR6 should be for the Triumph GT6. So here we go. Lights are on. We're about to jump away. Phil Chester drops the clutch. Laser number 11 right down there, and right behind him, playing a very similar looking number 11, was Keith Ondarchi. So the big V8's doing that as well. Up into turn 1. Have a look at that little midget. Michael Trathen, he just about sits down in like a bathtub compared to the bigger cars around him. But he's with them. He's right there. And in fact, he's going to have a look up around the outside of Simon as he goes to turn 3.
He actually made the best initial launch, but with 2 cars blocking the way, he had nowhere to go, so had to slot back into 3rd position, but still 1 position up from where he started. Straight past Keith Ondarchi as they head around the tight technical part of the circuit for the first time. So yes, certainly an interesting start. Chester lighting it up, smoke, as you say, pouring from the rear wheels, but didn't seem to affect the start. Led into turn number 1 for the first time.
Well, as I said, the number 40, the Stag of Ondarchi as well, did the same thing. They did a number 11s on the start line in unison there, but certainly Phil managed to keep the forward motion. It was sort of, I guess it gave Keith a backwards motion because the cars around him, that little MG midget of Trathen, does very well. Here's Alana getting taken around the inside there, the number 22 of John Illingworth just sliding up through there, and also looking to go back again. Here goes Alana in the 44, looking to move back there as well for Team Triumph Racing. And we're getting some ambient noise around the track. Sounds like one Phil Chester.
Look at how much faster the Triumph is in a straight line. You can visibly see it catching up and then dropping back behind the MG. It makes difficult work for the cameraman who's zooming in and zooming out, almost in a straight line there. But yeah, you can see the number 44 machine of Alana Ondarchi, yeah, really fast in a straight line, trying to get past the much more modern MG just ahead.
Yeah, the MG ZS 180. As we get a look at her father's car, the Stag 8, looks up the inside of Michael Trathen. He has no part of it. This is going to be a really big ask for Keith to try and get round Michael Trathen here at the tight confines of the Winton Motor Raceway. The big Stag really does enjoy the wide open long straights at Sandown. He had a tough old event at Sandown at round 1, so he is really looking to make amends and grab some points. But Trathen sits 2nd on the board. And when you look at this car, you'd think, how do they do it? It's all about power to weight ratio. Light, nimble, changes directions beautifully, and Michael has an innate ability to be able to flow this car, not drop revs out of it. 1300cc, that's all he's got, and he's racing a guy with a 5 litre coming up behind him.
It's consistency as well. That's what earned him the title last year. Sheer consistency. Other cars are having good races and then dropping out in the next. The Vic State point system rewards consistency, and that's exactly what he did last year. It is.
You hit the nail on the head, Dan McCarthy. That is exactly what he's done, and this is what Keith did last year too. He was there at the results as well. Had a couple which just dropped away from him, but certainly starting behind the 8 ball in this year's championship, because round 1 was not kind to this guy. Magnificent looking race car, sounds the goods, and Keith is very, very proud. If you're at the track and you see Keith and his Stag, go and have a chat. We'll show you through the car, and he just loves going to the racetrack. He's one of those guys that even a bad day at the racetrack's better than a good day at work.
Exactly, yeah, it is. Absolutely, I agree with those sentiments. And we see the number 55 car, the man in 2nd position, Elliott, having an issue on the straight, and he's pulling over into the gravel trap on the left-hand side on the run to turn number 3. What on earth has happened there? I just saw him front dust and debris in front of the commentary box as he pulled over to the side in a straight line. So I don't know if there's any steering damage or what, but it's very odd in the straight line to be on the grass.
So yeah, there's an issue there. We've got recovery vehicles on the move there, and we think that there's something in the back of that car that's not quite right, which is a really big shame, because he was going to be the only one, Simon was going to be the only one that was going to take it up to Phil Chester. His fastest lap on lap number 2, 1:33.05, so he was already working 3 seconds a lap faster than Simon at a 1:36.3. Next on line is Michael Trathen at a 1:38, so there it is. Safety car has been called. Safety car, boards and flags, as James Taylor would say. Safety car, boards and flags. Yeah, he's already known about it. There it is on the 888 Home Loans Blendline TV replay. He already knew about it. There was something not quite right in the back of that car. I tell you what, have a look at that lounge chair that he sits in there. The big wraparound shoulders on it. Very, very safe as the recovery crews now have a look over. Let's hope we don't have a repeat recovery of what happened a couple of races ago. Phil Chester just cruising on by in the number 72. I reckon Phil probably enjoy this, just to have a couple of fast laps and then cool off for a lap or two, because that car being so short and not very wide would be an absolute handful, and you can't take anything away from the likes of Vince Cucciardi and Phil Chester that race these cars, and Robin Bailey that do such a good job at it. They're very, very physical, hard and hot to drive. And there it is, there's the message as we see the safety crew landing down there. Big thanks to all of our officials and volunteers. Become an official, visit motorsport.org.au/officials, or just get involved with your local car club or a car club, one mate car club like the magnificent MG Car Club being represented on track right now. One of the big successful car clubs around Victoria that you can get involved with, and of course there's numerous clubs that are promoters of these rounds. The Mini Car Club, they do a tremendous job. Of course, the Australian Sports Sedan Association of Victoria run around, and the Phillip Island Auto Racing Club also run around. This round here this weekend is being run by a combination of all of the clubs, so they all get together and put on an event here at Winton every year. But certainly any one of those clubs, but there's literally hundreds of one-mate clubs or specialised clubs out there that you can get involved with, and we certainly do appreciate all of the time and effort that the volunteers put together. This entire series, in fact, is put together by a volunteer committee, volunteer crews, volunteer subcommittees on subcommittees and different bits and pieces, a subcommittee for printing and a subcommittee for not printing, and no, not quite like that. That sounds like a government agency, doesn't it? But certainly the Victorian State Race Series is run very, very skillfully by a fantastic executive that do a tremendous job rolling this series out year after year.
As you see the cars roll around under safety car, let's have a little bit of a... before we do that, tickets available if you enjoyed what you've seen here this afternoon. Make sure you get down to the track at Winton tomorrow. Not too far from Melbourne, particularly these days, just a couple of hours from the CBD. Easy drive down the Hume, not difficult at all, and you'll be here at Winton and enjoy a whole day worth of racing tomorrow from just after 9 o'clock all the way through till about 5 p.m. So make sure to get down here if you are around Melbourne or in around the country Victoria region.
Look, Dan, even if you're as far away as Wagga or Temora or Forbes, you can just get down the Hume, down the Olympic, whatever it might be, Echuca, the twin towns of Florida and Germany as well, the twin towns of Albury and Wodonga and Wangaratta and Shepparton, all around this northeastern part of Victoria certainly can. I mean, the first round of the New South Wales Championship was run here at Winton, and they came all the way down from Sydney. So there is plenty of time as the field just roll past us. It does give us a really good opportunity to get a really good close-up look at Phil Chester's car leading this field around. It is a very much a super engineered car, and this is just a shame. I've got to say, this is not, from a commentator's perspective, this is breaking my heart. I would hate to see how it's making Simon feel at the moment in the MGB 5 litre. It certainly will be breaking his heart. We're at round 2 of the 888 home loans. You can get in touch with 888 on 1800 1 888 and this is our championship calendar for the year. Round 1 was held at Sandown on the 19th of February. Here for round 2, 22-23 of April. We go to round 3 at Phillip Island, which is run by the Phillip Island Auto Racing Club on the 26th, 27th, 28th of May. We go back to Sandown, to the outer eastern suburbs wedged between Dandenong and Springvale for the Sandown Racecourse at the Australian Sports Sedan Association of Victoria run round on the 11th, 12th and 13th of August. Always a very popular event. And, well, traditionally, our final round has always been around that AFL Grand Final team. Best time to escape Melbourne, head down to the Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit, because let's face it, there's no greater piece of real estate than that place.
I think I've seen more AFL Grand Finals from the commentary box of
Yes,
Phillip
that's
Island than
right.
actually have on
Yeah,
TV
yeah.
in my lounge room, in all honesty.
For those that care in the garages, we'll have it on there. And look, there is still a to be confirmed around going racing at Calder Park this year as well. And I tell you what, if all the scuttlebutt around another new racetrack down near the Avalon Airport happens in a couple of years' time, maybe we get to go racing at an FIA Spec 1 circuit down near Avalon there, which will be a great thing. And certainly Victorian Motorsport and the Victorian sporting authorities around the government have identified a gaping hole as far as facilities for people in this sport. And it's only been over the last sort of 4 to 5 years that they've realised the value that motorsport brings to the state. Phil Chester away again, back under green conditions. He just jams that throttle down there. Keith Ondaatje goes with him. Then it's Danny Siama as well. Makem goes there. He keeps that as well. What has happened? What have we done with Michael Trathen?
He's disappeared, hasn't he?
He has disappeared. He's down in 14th. We've missed that during the safety car period. Michael Trathen has gone backwards.
It's an MG just firing across the curb at turn number 2. That's the 83 car of Trevor Dunford just out of shot there. But yes, firing all 4 wheels over the curb. Got some air there. That was quite spectacular. But yes, so in terms of the championship, they're all dropping like flies. So Trevor Lindsay didn't start the race. Championship leader Michael Trathen, who was second in the championship coming into this one, he's now dropped down to 14th. And as far as we can see, not crossed the line, so somewhere out on the racetrack. So that now leaves Danny Kiama, third in the championship, third on the road at the moment. He's got a great chance of taking the championship lead if he can keep it on the track to the finish.
Well, Danny was all over the back of the number 40 of Keith Ondaatje there as well, coming into the water tower, and he was doing a tremendous job. As we get some great shots of car number 7 here, the King George Tavern car of Robert Splatt. He has done a terrific job there. And there it goes, the number 7 down, away he goes. And the registration on the back of that, I thought that was a Toyota tagline, that one. That was one that they had there. Maybe not. Triumph, Toyota, no, nothing like each other at all, except they both start with T. Getting a good look now also for Peter Rose in his MGB, 1800. This is your traditional fare, isn't it? When you think MGs, this is what you really start to think about.
Well, depends on your age, potentially, Dad. I see some of these MGs a little bit further down the field. Number 22, the MG ZS. That's my era, mate. That's my era.
Yeah, same here. That's actually my era.
There it
as
is
well.
on the screen. That silver one. That's the era I grew up in.
I think my dad would have liked an MGB, but many, many years later, I would suggest the modern version of the MGB is the Mazda MX-5. So that's what he has put his hat on, or my mum has anyway. But yeah, that's 22 there. That's a good-looking car, isn't it?
It is.
It really does look the goods. The ZS 180. And hopefully tomorrow we might have Paul Vernell, who knows the ins and outs of all of these cars, and will be able to give us a little bit more insight into this particular car. But yeah, certainly the MGB, that beautiful exhaust note out of the 800cc, has been around for over 50 years now, and we celebrated that at the VHRR promoted historic Sandown.
The size difference of these two cars is quite significant, isn't it? Look at him, all over the place like a shark trying to catch a fish. It's quite something as they go through the flip-flop section, the lefts and the rights, and down now towards the more flat-out section into the 90-degree stuff that finishes the lap.
I can't actually pick up where the little blue midget is. There it is. It's right on the inside of the sweeper.
Yes.
Parked in behind the flag point there. So he certainly hasn't gone into pit lane because it hasn't been highlighted on the timing screen, but he's only done 3 laps and parked in behind the flag point. Just a little blue dot parked in behind the flag point there. So that's a real shame. But it is at the moment, it is all in Danny Siama's hands to try and chase down Keith Ondaatje for a result here today. As there goes Ondaatje, and there goes Danny as well. So there's a bit of a gap there, but Phil Chester's driving away nicely. A 1:33.0539, and that is a beautiful lap there. He is absolutely smashing it out in the the Monty-powered car. Of course, this time last year it was Gary Bulmer that had won a race in race 1. Robin Bailey took a race win in race 2. Did his fastest lap of a 1:35.5944. And Keith Ondaatje actually took out the round. And there we go. There he is, right there in the inside of the sweeper, or the driver's left of the sweeper. And he has parked it up safely there, so didn't have to cause any further safety car laps there. Up over the ripple strips with the number 22 there. Gave you the four-door saloon sort of effect there, didn't it? Once you put it up in the ripple strip, it bounced its way on through the end of the corner there. The 9 just being flowed beautifully there by White as they come onto the back straight. Now here's the performance race coming down.
It's very much David and Goliath, this, isn't it?
Definitely. And this is what the MG and Invited British Racing tends to be like. And at the front of the field, we see these highly modified MG BGTs of Phil Chester and Vince Gucciardi, which I think Vince may have sold his car. He may have moved it on. Certainly interesting that Robin Bailey's not here with us this weekend. He's been an out-and-out stalwart of the Victorian state racing scene, particularly in the 888 Home Loans Victorian State Racing Series. And I reckon this gap between Ondaatje and Siama has closed up. Here we go again, still looking at this battle between the 9 and the 22.
The margin you're just mentioning, Kiama, despite setting a personal best lap on the last lap, actually lost 3/10, so it's just gone out now to 2.3 seconds as we see a battle a little bit further down the field, as we see Rose and Splat cross the line side by side, and a change for position. Splat with the horsepower is easily able to take the lead, take the position number 10 down into turn number 1.
Fantastic. Started out of 14th, did Splat. Now made his way inside the 10. So you can just see the Thermo fan working pretty hard in the front of the Triumph there. And he is doing a really good job here. Robert, been around for quite some time, runs very, very successful engineering business at Splat Engineering. And enjoys the Triumph racing, really enjoys the camaraderie here as we're just watching Phil Chester. He's giving very clear indication with the right headlight flashing there. The 72 back down through the gearbox, attacks turn 1, 2 complex.
It's coming up to a back marker, car number 49. That's Volleybrecht, one of the Volleybrechts.
I think that's Jane.
It is Jane, yes. Yep. So coming up to lap her up the inside. Nicely stays out the way, does Jane, so Chester's able to continue on his way. The gap now out to 18 seconds, which in 21 minutes of action, including a safety car, shall we add, that is a phenomenal effort. It just shows how much speed this car has underneath it.
I wonder if that right flasher is a slip of the hand off something and he's hit a switch somewhere that he may be not aware of, but certainly this car just glistens in this afternoon sunlight, doesn't it? Just captures all the right angles. Oh, here's a great battle. This is what it's all about in the MG Car Club. They love it. They all get out racing. It's fantastic that they use these cars. These could be quite easily put away and collected and, you know, maybe be dust gatherers, but all these guys are doing at the moment is putting a wheel off in the dust and throwing it up in the air and having the best old time. So we've got White, Illingworth, that's Bunyan, White and Illingworth we're watching now as well, and that is finding it out for 5th, 6th and 7th on the road. This Triumph here, leading the way, the number 78.
So Bunyan
Gordon
on the
Bunyan,
last.
the Triumph Spitfire, famous Triumph, the Spitfire.
Bunyan was, 1.3 seconds slower than these two on the previous lap, and that's why the margin closed, but seems to have got his head down and pulled away once again early in this lap.
Massive understeer from
Yes.
both White and Illingworth there as well. Illingworth managed to follow the understeering number 9 through there. Getting a good look now. That's Johnny Makem gone through there, so he is currently sitting in 4th place with, of course, our race leader now clear of the field by 20.15 seconds. A new lap record, a 1:33.0539 for Phil Chester, done on lap number 2. We're now on lap number 10 and 2.5 minutes remain.
This just shows power to weight ratio for me. Car 22 would surely have so much more horsepower, but the weight means that he can't get the power down out the corners, and then
Well, like any saloon car or, four-door type of car, he's got to bounce it off the curbs to try and make the pace, whereas these cars, there is absolutely no reward from bouncing off the curbs.
Correct.
They keep them clean, they keep them tidy, they flow them, and that is the out-and-out skill of running an 1800 or a 2-litre car in this sort of racing, because the 2.5-litre car of John Illingworth as well there, so he's trying to wring the neck of the big four-door saloon to stay with these nimble little sports cars.
I don't know if Bunyan's struggling a bit in a straight line at the moment. He seems fine around the corners, but maybe struggling for a bit of straight line handling.
Checkered flag at the ready for the new lap record. Phil Chester returning to the Victorian State Circuit Racing Championships, the 888 Home Loans Victorian State Race Series, and he fires first blood, takes pole, takes the win, takes the lap record, and he should be very, very proud of himself for bringing this car back to the grid. I spoke to him at Sandown, it was at Sandown, and he said it was just weeks and weeks to get parts and to get machining done, and there it is on the final lap. These guys racing for inside the 10, and Bunyan has gone back 2 spots now by White and Illingworth. So the triumph, as Dan McCartney said, was something wasn't quite right there, and he has been left in the wake of White and Illingworth, and we're going to watch these two come to the line, because this has been a race-long battle. I reckon the number 9 will be happy to stop looking in the mirrors and seeing a grey, white and red protagonist. And they go to the line here. Is the saloon going to get through? No. It'll be the MGB.
Bunyan's going to struggle to even hold this position, I think, potentially. That car is incredibly slow. Coming down pit straight. Should be safe, just about, but a couple more corners and he lost another place. But he does hold on to 7th position from Ondaatje of the Alana variety, coming home in 8th, and then it's these two on the screen.
Peter Rose.
Then it's Rose and Splat, which we see here.
Yeah, Peter Rose has got through on Splat, so Splat's had the back part of this race. Charges at the line here. Does he have a dip at it from our angle? Who would know? But yep, certainly the timing sheets will tell us. It's Rose over the number 7 of Robert Splat. Great to see the TR6 out on track. Rob at the wheel there, doing a ripping job. Keith Ondaatje brought it home into P2. He'll be very, very proud of that. The Stag is a difficult car to keep running, as we just watched Simon Elliott just going back into the paddock as well there under his own steam. So that's good to see. He fell off earlier on in the race. There's the result. A fastest lap, 1:33.05 to Phil Chester, who won the race over Keith Ondaatje. Danny Siama in the number 15 into 3rd. John Makem, Greg White, John Illingworth, Gordon Bunyan, Alana Ondaatje in the 2nd of the Stags making it through there. There's Robert Splat home in 11th, and Jeffrey St John Cox 12. Jane Bollebreck, and unfortunately Michael Trath and Simon Elliott didn't bring it home in the end there. We have got the Circuit XLs up on track for the last race of the day. Of course, we open the gates at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Make your way trackside. The first race starts at 9:10. Let's have a quick break and we'll be back with XL. The magnificent blue sky green grass of the Winton Motor Raceway here for round 2 of the Victorian State Circuit Racing Championships. The 888 Home Loans Victorian State Race Series. A big thanks to all the crew down there at 888 Home Loans. They do the very best of home loans. Let them know you're involved in the Victorian motor racing scene and they will set you up in what could be some pretty stressful times for people with home loans around there. Let 888 Home Loans smooth the way for you and make it a lot easier. I'm Darren Smith, right alongside me, the expert on all things MG racing, Paul Vanel. Welcome, Paul. Great field of MGs made their way to Winton this weekend.
Thanks, Darren. It's good to be back today. Missed yesterday, but it's good to be at sunny Winton. It's better than being back in Melbourne, and it's great that we've got 4 cars that are back on the grid from yesterday. So that reliability, they're back. One didn't even make my race 1 yesterday and is back after I was courier this morning for some parts to get them back on the track for today. So looking forward to it.
Here's how the grid looks. It is Phil Chester after a massive drive yesterday on pole position. Right alongside the Stag, number 40 of Keith Ondaatje. Danny Siama will be next. John Makem drove brilliantly yesterday. Greg White, John Illingworth, then it's Gordon Bunyan. Alana Ondaatje in the 44 Stag, then it's Trevor Dunford. Peter Rose back to Robert Splatt in that magnificent Triumph TR6. Did a terrific job yesterday. Shirley St John Cox out of 12. Jane Vollebrecht. Michael Trathen, he will be the one to watch. He's always the one to watch, but coming from the rear of the grid, car 1 out of position 14, and Simon Elliott. I'm not sure. I haven't seen Simon go around on the warm-up lap. He's out there. And away we go. Phil Chester gets the start. Nailed today. He drove and created a couple of big licorice straps yesterday, but that was some great drive off the line. Makem as well has got through as well. Straight down the middle of the field there, the big saloon, the ZS 180. It's driven very, very well by John Illingworth yesterday, and he has started off brilliantly here this morning.
Yeah, great start. Phil Chester, launch control not working this weekend, so he's got to actually modulate his right foot, hence the burnout yesterday, but he's nailed it today.
Here's the number 66. We missed him yesterday. Had a great round 1 at Sandown. Took all the chockies at the end of the weekend, tucked them under his arm, went back to South Australia. Fantastic that Trevor Lindsay in the Triumph GT6 has made his way back here to Winton. Not as good a weekend as Sandown, but certainly out on track now and enjoying himself.
Yeah, a few challenges yesterday, back with a vengeance today, looking to come through the field. The track will suit him, as we see Simon Elliott on the screen here. Simon had a bit of a challenge yesterday as well. The car cut out on him, which is why you would have seen him pull off down at turn 3 here, hoping to get through, but they're not sure they can fix that problem at the track.
Greg White will get a start line infringement, jumping on the start there. So starting out of P5, car number 9, a 5-second race time penalty. But Elliott just making his way through the back markers there. Not exactly storming on through like we saw Paul Cruz doing in the improved production race. Did a tremendous job there, Paul Cruz. But I guess in that fashion, here's a guy that, I said I'm going to be watching. That's Michael Trathen in car number 1. And look at that, goes past the Stag there. And that's Lana Ondaatje. And she's now got her mirrors full with Trevor Lindsay charging in the Triumph behind her.
Yeah, Lana having a good weekend. She said the car's almost quicker than her this weekend, so she's got to catch up a bit. So look for her to come, ease her way into the race, and towards the end she might really hit her straps.
Actually, you've hit the nail on the head there, Paul. That's sort of how she races. These timed races will work out well for her. All the 78 and the 1. Car number 1, I would say sight unseen there, trying to sneak up the inside of Bunyan. Now he's met his presence felt, as the 66 will try and go through as well. Bunyan saying, no, we'll flow the car around here. You can have a look up the inside, but I'm not going to give you all the track. And no harm, no foul. They continue out of turn 4, and the 66 rages alongside the number 1. This is very reminiscent of race 2 at Sandown.
It is, and the Triumph's probably got a little bit more torque, a little bit more power, but Mike Trathen, number 1, that car, very lightweight, and around here, the power deficit not as noticeable. So he's obviously on the charge. He's got number 1, and he's now got a DNF for the year. So he's looking for maximum points.
I would say JLJ 199. Here's that, isn't it? KLJ 199. Registered road car is just about reaching legendary status amongst the Victorian motor racing community. JLJ 199, and that is absolutely awesome. Still got the number plates on that car. I dare say he doesn't have any intention of driving it down the road this weekend, but certainly you do not get number 1 on the side of your car from being lazy, that is for sure. It is a tireless day after day after day. Simon Elliott stopped again out on track. Not what we wanted to see. Was on the front row of the grid yesterday. Threatened for a little while, but he's starting to have some common issues that keep cropping up with that car. It's not what we want to see, as we get notification that the fastest car on track is Phil Chester, as we would expect. And Illingworth now having a look at Trathen coming through.
Yeah, so it's worth reminding people, Simon Elliott, second race event that car has actually done. They're very minimal testing. They're basically doing live testing by going out and racing. So a lot of little teething problems, but they will get there. The car looks $1 million, and when it goes really well. So looking forward to him continuing to find his feet in that car, and hopefully we'll see him at the next couple of rounds of state race as well.
A couple of people definitely found their feet, and these are guys who are charging through the field from the back of the field, almost line astern with each other. John Illingworth has just sort of played with them for about half a lap or so, but Michael Trathen leading Trevor Lindsay. Trathen's sort of the pioneer, isn't he? He arrives on the back of the cars that they're catching and has to work his way past, and Trevor Lindsay just closes that gap up. This is where the GT6 will come into its own. Get the power down out of the corner and down the next couple of straights really does allow the cars that have got some good horsepower under the bonnet to stretch their legs. A 1300cc MG power plant that we've got in car number 1 is stretching its legs pretty much all the way around the lap, isn't it?
It's flat out all the time. You see John Makem just getting out of the way of these two, and might give you a little bit of wave. Some really good courtesy going on there. John still finding his feet, so he's probably going to try and latch on the back and see if they can pull him along. But yeah, great to see. Phil Chester just backing off a little bit. Hopefully no sort of problems
he's gone
there.
to the pits.
Into
the pits. So Keith Ondaatje will be the leader of the race on lap number 3. 11 minutes still to go, and Keith has gone down into turn 3. He's got cleared track around him. There's Phil Chester.
Pit crew aren't too worried, so that would suggest that something Phil's picked up, not something obvious, so a bit of a shame there. But Phil back in the big blue V8 this weekend. I know a lot of people keen to see that car back. It's been 15 months since he's last driven it, so a few little teething issues no doubt as well for them, so look out. We've got Mike Trathen here still leading as these two. They're, what are they, 3rd and 4th overall at the moment. Lindsay probably not going to catch Keith for the Invited British lead here, but this could be an interesting battle for 3rd and 4th overall. John Makem hasn't really lost them too much, a couple of seconds back, but he hasn't lost them too quickly, so if he can hang on, he could still be in the game here. And for John to be keen, as we see Phil Chester rejoining, this might give him a bit of a challenge. 10 minutes, how many people can he catch as he exits back onto the track here?
Going back 12 months ago at this event, it was Robin Bailey in an MGB GT V8 that won race 1 and race 3 for the weekend, and Gary Bulmer in the 2-litre car won race 2 of the weekend, with Keith Ondaatje coming second place in all races. So maybe Keith will go one better this year and take out race number 2. Still got a fair whack of time, just over 9.5 minutes left for Keith to continue on with. Phil is now being shown as 1 minute and 10 seconds behind, but he's also got a lot of traffic in between, and I would suggest, and I hope it isn't, but he's got a little bit of a niggling issue that might be going on underneath the car somewhere. We saw the crew have a bit of a look under there. There didn't seem to be a whole lot of concern, as you did mention, Paul, but they were still having a look at it, weren't they?
Yeah, and as I say, the car hasn't been on track properly. Well, it hasn't been on track for 15 months, and so they've come back looking to just get themselves back in the groove. Phil as well, so he's probably a little bit conservative. I would be too. So hopefully, as you say, maybe a niggling issue. Hopefully nothing at all. We'll see if he pumps out some fast laps. This
is a good battle here, led by White, Bunyan, and Vollebrecht in there and getting on through the 78, just opening up the corner there. So Bunyan just allowing Vollebrecht to go through and not putting up too much of a fight, which, let's face it, if you haven't got the fight in it, then let the protagonist go through there. So the 48 going through there of Anthony Vollebrecht, the MG ZR, a complete and utter different generation of MG product.
Yeah, absolutely. The only ZR in the field this weekend, little front-wheel drive hatchback, a much more modern car. He suffered a drive shaft failure on Friday, and it took until this morning to get that rectified. So back from the back of the grid up to 8th at the moment is a great run from him. He's also, should give him a call out, he's also the current president of the MG Car Club of Victoria, as we see. Danny Siama got a little bit of smoke coming out. He did say he was managing oil pressure and oil temp, so I dare say that's got the better of him.
It has. He's gone to the lane out of position number 2 in the race. What a shame. Looking good for another good result. Podiumed yesterday and did a really nice job, did Danny. Came home in 3rd place with John Makem just behind him, so now gone into the lane. And Paul, I'll refer to your expertise here. When something expires on your MGB GT V8, normally fairly expensive, isn't it?
Yeah, you could say that. Certainly not cheap. Parts not super readily available these days for the more stressed out versions of the Rover V8. But Danny's been having a good run, but he did say he was a little bit challenged yesterday's race. So hopefully it's just a bit of precaution, they can fix it.
So just watching Phil Chester now, he is in position 14 on the road, circulating, getting the joints relubricated, although yesterday he proved that age had not wearied him, not being at the track had not wearied him either, so he's done a really, really good job to come back. A pretty fit kind of a bloke too, so he doesn't have to worry too much about that sort of aspect of it. But
well, it's hard not to be when you live in Noosa these days. just going to say
I was
that.
going to dance around that. You get out and you can jog down the beach and have yourself a banana smoothie at a cafe somewhere for breakfast.
Whenever I give him a call,
enjoy
he's
it.
on the beach these days. So.
Why not, hey? Why not? I reckon that's where my life's leading. Hopefully, hopefully we'll get there. But yeah, really good to see Phil back on board. And interestingly enough, yeah, he calls Noosa home these days, but so still integrally involved in the Victorian racing scene.
Absolutely. Spends a lot of time working on it, just from a really much nicer outlook than the rest of us. But yeah, very involved with both Vic State Race and MG Racing. Without MG Racing, Phil Chester wouldn't have anything to spend his time on. But without Phil Chester, MG Racing probably wouldn't exist. So just picked up, got somebody slowing on the back straight as well, just coming onto the back straight. Looks like it might be John Makem, so that'd be a shame if John slowed. He's been having a great weekend up until then.
Greg White and Gordon Bunyan are having a ripping time. The two yellow cars, one the MG, one the Triumph. And there's Alana Ondaatje just in behind them there as well. So the 33 has pulled up John Makem, and he is getting out and really has to recoil himself to get out of the little car there. Steps out and will get over the barriers. Here is this battle that I was just talking about. And these two commonly will get together. Eventually the lap times will allow themselves to come back together. It was the number 9 that started in front of the 78, so Greg White was one spot up the road from Gordon Bunyan, and that's exactly how we're seeing them at the moment. Back a couple more spots. They in fact started right next to Gordon Bunyan was Alana Ondaatje, and that's the Stag we can see just sort of ranging through the sweeper as these guys go round the water tower. Beautifully presented car. They've just gone past there. We didn't really get to see it much as they streamed on through.
Yeah, Jane Vollebredt, husband Tony running in 5th at the moment, and Jane running around there. She loves her little purple MGB, very suitable to her. And you know, this is what's great, as you can see, she knows she's not the most fastest driver, but she always gives everyone a bit of a wave, lets them through. Great camaraderie, great racing. And it's great to have everyone out there, and I think Jane's the epitome of those people that don't get a lot of airtime because they're not at the pointy end or having the big battles, but they make up MG Racing such an integral part.
Oh, the good thing for me is that the car does look brilliant, and that's always very important, that you bring the car prepared to within a millimetre of its life to every race meeting. You get to run the whole race meeting and put it on the trailer and take it home at the end of the weekend with a hassle-free weekend. Back to our race leader, the giant, the man with the weight on his shoulders here, Keith Ondaatje, carrying the number 40, the Stag V8. Lives and breathes this magnificent race car. Loves his, let's say it invited British racing. Certainly mixing it up in the MG field. He loves to be that underdog type of feeling about it. And this car would not be easy to keep going on a racetrack. I would expect it would be one of those sort of things. It's a power of passion, and that is what Keith is. He epitomises that passionate racer. And car number 40 with 3.5 minutes left to go. Charging up the straight there. That's where it's at home the most. Good horsepower. Gets the power down. Interesting looking coach work on this car. It's a one-off, that's for sure.
Yeah, very much, I guess, his own creation and image that he's come up with. It's a very menacing, probably the most menacing looking Stag you could probably sort of come up with, and it almost looks like somebody got a crayon or something and just drew a car and went, let's build that. So great to have Keith out there, and wouldn't be an easy car to drive. Be quite hot in there today. Keith driving very, very well. It's going to be interesting this afternoon because Tratton hasn't been able to make a lot of inroads here, but he and Lindsay are a similar sort of speed to Keith. So this afternoon's race for the front could be a cracker.
Yeah, 25 minutes too. That will certainly test them out. And you'd have to say the tyres under car number 1, the one we're looking at the moment, currently second in this race, you would have to say will fare the best, because Keith will certainly be battling with things like wheel spin and things like that. Great horsepower coming out of the Stag. But Keith just a little bit of a mistake sneaking into his run through turns 1 and 2 the last time. They got a bit awkward with the ripple strips there. So maybe just starting to feel the pressure, starting to feel the heat. Here's another one, the 66, who, when you look at him, Paul, he sits right up in the roof of the car. That's the hottest point of the car, in the top there. All the windows are down, so he's certainly looking for fresh air to flow through the car. Currently third on the road. And don't forget, the cars we've both just been looking at, as in Michael Tratton, has come from the back of the grid and doing a terrific job. And as has Trevor Lindsay from the back of the grid. So those cars are now in a podium position.
Absolutely. Also just saw Phil Chester, fast lap of the race, 134.4. So he's still pushing on towards the end here. He's struggling to make the big gaps that he left by coming into the pits, but he'll be eyes on for the end of today, when he'll be coming from probably the row 4 at the moment. So could be a good battle up the front to finish out the weekend.
It certainly will be, and Phil will have to be pretty careful just to pick off the first couple of rows in that, I'm going to say, first lap and a half or so to get his way to the front, because he'll have this guy that we're looking at now, John Illingworth, in this bigger saloon car. I guess not something that is commonly seen out there on the roads, but this MG ZS 180 being driven very well yesterday by John. He really did a tremendous job, and not taking anything away from him today, 4th in this race at this stage.
Yeah, absolutely. John, one of those gentlemen that came in, had no expectations of MG Racing, and has turned out that his motorsport experience given him a lot of experience to lean on a car that he didn't know much about. Hasn't done any front-wheel drive racing, but that little ZS, he absolutely wrings its neck, and he's got Tony in another front-wheel drive. So great little battle here. Looks like Phil Chester's also got Gordon Bunyan, so that's good for Phil. He's up to 6th.
Great result here coming in for the MG and Invited British cars. We got 11 seconds left. You'd have to suggest that next time Keith Ondaatje comes to the line. Last time on the timing screen, 9.2 seconds to Michael Trathen, and he's balanced that as we get a good look at the 22 and the 48 now of Illingworth and Vollebrecht, and they're doing it. Here comes car number 40. Is it checkered flag time? Have we got the checkered flag out? There it is. It drops. A great result there for a bloke that tirelessly prepares car number 40, this Triumph Stag. Really good result there. That'll fill him with absolute joy that he's got the result in this car. He's fat arming it too around the track now, just waving to the flag. He's got the arm up on the windowsill, and well, he's going to be gasping for air after he gets out of that car. Windows are all up still, keeping the aero package tight.
Yes, and we see John Illingworth run off second last corner. He's thrown it away and let Tony Vollebrecht through. That's not how you finish a race.
No, that's not. You bring it on for just off a podium finish, and you throw it away on the penultimate corner of the race there. So Keith Ondaatje prevails over Michael Trathen to Trevor Lindsay, and Paul, got to say, mechanical marvel out of car number 1 and car number 66. They joined on the tail end of this field. They've driven through to step 2 and 3 on the podium, and they've done a brilliant drive. And look, the other good thing about this field is that the field is racy, but if you're faster, here we go. This is what happened on the penultimate corner. John Illingworth in the 22, quick in, and I think he got off the accelerator and just understeered off. In fact, he wasn't slow out. He kept going. He kept on it and drove out. The problem was,
I think he thought he was on the rallycross track that we
did.
Do. So
Anthony Vollebrecht was right there to grab that result. Here we go. This is how it looks for MG and Invited British Sports Cars for race 2. Keith Ondaatje, a very emphatic victory, 9.6 seconds over Michael Trathen in car number 1. Trevor Lindsay, who drove from the back of the field, a great drive. Anthony Vollebrecht got the chocolates on the penultimate corner. John Illingworth to Phil Chester. We'll watch for car number 72 come this afternoon's race. Greg White, Gordon Bunyan, Alana Ondaatje. We look outside the 10. Peter Rose did a good drive there. Bruce Condren, Jeff St. John, and some non-finishers there with John Makem, Jane Vollebrecht, Danny Siama, Simon Elliott, and Robert Splat. Wait to see if those cars join on. I'm Darren Smith, right alongside Paul Vernell, who lives and breathes all things MG and Invited British cars. Top race from those guys coming from the rear of the field this morning, wasn't it, Paul?
it was. It's going to be a cracker this afternoon. Those top 3 very, very close on personal best lap times. So that'll be very, very exciting. And Tony Vollebrecht was also, might be able to latch on the back. They're probably just a little bit too quick for Tony, but he's been getting quicker and quicker and more comfortable. And don't forget Phil Chester out of 6th. He's got a bit of work.
I don't think we can. We're going to be reminded, I think, constantly for the next 15 minutes or so.
Indeed. But Yeah, a couple of guys haven't been able to fix their problems, but Phil has. He did have a small issue which brought him into the pits in race 1. They believe they've rectified it, so look for him to have the lights ablaze and on charge. We will, unfortunately, Rob Splatt and Simon Elliott have both gone home. Simon Elliott, unfortunately, the car cutting out this morning again. They're deciding it's a little bit unsafe to keep circulating with the chance of it being cutting out again. Electrical problems. It's a British car. It's got to have electrical problems, right, Darren? So
Lucas, the Prince of Darkness, hey?
yeah, that's right. So Danny Chalmer at the rear of the grid in this one. We saw him pulling the pits with a lot of smoke coming out of that car. I think they fixed it. So he said he'll take the first lap gingerly, and if he gets through the first lap, it's on. So.
Well, it's not the only field this weekend that we've seen cars retire to the pits with smoke coming out of them. In fact, just about every category has had that happen in one way, form or another. In fact, the last race for today with the XLs have been for some time the ones that have provided that sort of action, and they've gone pretty much cleanly throughout this weekend. Looking forward to seeing how Cadell Ambrose goes throughout that race this afternoon. But we have got the fair on the plate now. It is MG and invited British cars. Let's have a look at how the grid was laid out. It'll be Keith Ondaatje in the Evergreen, number 40 Stag. Right next to him, Michael Trathen, the champion from last year. Trevor Lindsay to Tony Vollerbrecht, which you were nice enough to bring an axle to the circuit for him this morning, Paul.
I was. The world's best courier service.
John Illingworth, I wouldn't want to see the invoice on that from Melbourne on a Sunday morning. Phil Chester, then we go back to Gordon Bunyan, Greg White, Alana Ondaatje, Peter Rose, who's had a pretty good weekend, Peter. Bit up and down in this morning's race, but did a good job yesterday. Trevor Dunford, back to Boost Condren, Shirley St John Cox, John Makem, look for him coming from down the back there, Jane Vollerbrecht, Danny Siama, Simon Elliott won't be joining us, and Robert Splatt hasn't made the grid either. So a little bit of attrition, but we've certainly got the cream of the crop. I'm going to say plastered over the front row of the grid. I don't want to cast any aspersions on Phil Chester. This is his first race back from 12 months of being away. These guys have been absolutely plugging away at it. And the second row of the grid there, car number 66, Trevor Lindsay, was fantastic at Sandown. And again this morning drove brilliantly through the field as we get set for the final race for the weekend. 25 minutes, going to be a long haul for the Stag sitting on the front row of this grid. Keith will be working very hard. He'll have the tank brimming with fuel, and he gets a lot of wheel spin off the line, as does Trevor Lindsay. Phil Chester splits the MGs around him and gets bottled up around the back end of Trevor Lindsay. We sort of aspersed to this morning. He's just not showing it hard there. He's got away hard, but certainly just gingerly letting the first couple of corners take their course. Got to get the big slick tyres warmed up on the number 72 before it gets up to full performance, but he ranges right up onto the back of his great mate Keith Ondaatje, and they're from each side of the River Thames as they go into battle around through the sweeper for the first time. The Monty Power MGB GT V8 of Phil Chester. He graces us with his presence from Queensland for this round, and just getting things all warmed up there. Phil Chester knows exactly what's in front of him and the task ahead of him. So just enjoying having this magnificent number 72 back on track.
Yeah, it's good to have him out here. Trevor Lindsay as well in second. He's been campaigning that car for 20 years now, and he was telling me that this morning he was nearly at his personal best he's ever done in the car. So he really enjoyed chasing Mike Trathen through the field this morning, and see if he can pull a bit more out now he doesn't have traffic this afternoon.
Probably something to do with Matty Dunlop going down there to do an interview with him and remind him of his obligation to drive hard this weekend, and I don't think we have to remind him of that. He's not one of these guys that has got his Triumph hidden away in the garage and not use it. He likes to get out there and get it dirty and get amongst it. So past goes Phil Chester in the 72. Now the 40. Keith Ondaatje just tries to get onto the back of this MG. Great horsepower in that car, and here is the horsepower race. This is the David versus Goliath battle that we're going to see unfold over the next couple of laps. Michael Trathen has been taken by Trevor Lindsay, and he will hang in there. What I like about Michael Trathen is you can see that white helmet leaning into the corners. You can see it bobble around as it goes over the bumps. But what I like the best is JLJ 199. I love the registration plate still on that car.
Yeah, who doesn't love a car that's still registered racing these days? It's few and far between.
It's a rarity, isn't it?
And, you know, even the old alloy cage and that, you can tell that car's got a lot of history. And I love seeing him. You know, you can see him soaring at the wheel as he tries to handle it. It's not a lot of weight, so it moves around a lot. Little bumps, moves it around. Very easy to lock a brake, so he really has to hustle that car. And in a series like this at the moment, most of the cars around him, they've got the power. So you can rely a little bit on horsepower. He can't.
But what we can rely on, the fact is that we know he can drive well, drive brilliantly, because you don't get number one for mucking around. You're committed to it. You rock up to every race. You finish every race. And you're fast in between. 1,300 cc's is all he's got to throw it at these guys. And we're talking 5+ litres around him, 3 litres in front.
And you'd say Phil's watching on going, I've got the best seat in the house for this battle. So I think he's settling in for the long haul here. If only we had an in-car camera, we could watch along. But
well, we've just had Paul Ziddy exit the booth after calling the Formula Ford race. He's going to be racing at the next round, so we're going to try and wire him up, see if we can get some in-car commentary from Paul Ziddy.
And some heckling, no doubt.
Oh, well, I did say to him, that'd be great, mate. Your lap times won't be affected. He agreed. Phil Chester now moves through on Mike Trathen in a straight line, gets it all done safely. And one of the things with Phil was he was a bit angry with himself. He was about 6 seconds off his time, and openly admitting that, and was wanting to get on with it, wanting to get some speed under the tyres. Blazes up to the back of the 66. Very wide at the sweeper. Chooses a difficult way to go around here. That is the hard way, particularly on such a narrow track and short wheelbase car. We saw it bobbling around a bit there. Mike Trathen not letting this little opportunity get away from him. Any advantage?
Look at him go.
Try and get on the inside on the run onto the out of turn 9. No, gets it all cut off there. But the interesting thing is that these cars battling a little bit and just allowing Phil Chester to ease his way through the field without creating a nuisance for himself. The fact that car 40 is now starting to range up and battle up with the guys second and third in this race.
And they'll have a little bit of a challenge by the time they get onto the front straight, because Keith will probably have enough grunt to maybe get them by turn 1. Obviously won't be able to necessarily get through the corners as quick, but he could just get ahead and make it really awkward for these guys. So this could get an interesting battle. And based on times, Keith's not miles quicker. So overall, over a lap, all 3 cars are achieving their lap completely differently, but to a very similar time. Also, I know we're showing this, but just to jump on, Danny Chalmer is up to 6th as he comes from the back of the field and ranging up towards Tony Mollebrand. So we could see him start to close in on these guys.
As I tell you what, you know it's Phil Chester when he goes past one of the mic'd up cameras. And look at this, and Archie looks at the inside of Michael Trathen. You've got to hand it to Michael. He must be a dripping ball of sweat at the end of these races. He doesn't mind just putting it in front of the Goliath charging up behind him, does he? Puts the car in the place. He is in front. He's allowed to put it wherever he wants. And he has absolutely all the ability and the confidence to do so.
Yeah, he's absolutely hustles it. I think it's great to watch him driving that car. You know, you can tell it's still got that road variation. It moves around a little bit. He's got that oversteer and understeer, and he saws at the wheel, and you know, just absolutely pushing it to its limits. Whereas you can tell the cars around him just a little bit more settled, and they've got the power to sort of keep themselves in front.
One thing you can tell about this car is it sans bumper bars, it sans everything that weighs it down. It's all about power to weight ratio, and that is what at the end of 25 minutes here today, around probably 13 or 14 laps, the tyres won't have turned to mush. The car will still be good.
Yep.
The driver will certainly have worked up a sweat, because it's like he's in the mosh pit out there, dancing on the pedals and steering away, leading into the corners, giving it all the weight over the side of the car where it's needed. And almost like a sidecar driver on a motorbike, isn't it? He puts his head in, gets it very animated at the wheel.
You've got Gordon Bunyan looking at making a move on Greg White here. These two battled
surprise, surprise,
all last race, and I did see Greg between races, and he said it's like having this little terrier at you all the time, just nipping at your heels. You can't ever calm down and relax, because you know he's just going to take a bit of a chunk. As we see Keith again trying under Mike Trathen, but you just can't imagine he's going to be able to outbrake Trathen, and Mike stays ahead. So great work. The Stag would be a big machine to be hustling around here compared to that midget. Keith will probably experience coming into it, but he's got to play the long game here, make sure he doesn't overheat his tyres, overheat his brakes, make life too hard for himself. He's got a fair bit of time still. We've still got 14 minutes on the clock, so slow and steady might win the race here.
Phil Chester's now clearly out in front, starting to jump his own personal times by about 1.8 seconds a lap. Now down to a 136.78.
Yep.
Starting to work into a tidy lap time.
And I also saw Danny Chalmer right on the back of Tony Vollebrett for 5th at the moment, so they will be looking to probably swap position shortly. Tony's more modern car, probably a little bit better on its tyres over the whole race distance compared to Danny, who will probably be pushing his tyres and brakes quite a lot over this distance, but that'll be an interesting battle. As we see Keith again, the horsepower keeps him up, but then they get to the corners and Mike's just able to pull a little bit of a gap.
How's that induction noise out of Phil Chester's car as it goes underneath the microphone onto the straight there? Full load. Throws it down the straight here. There's number 40, looks to the inside at Mike Trathen. He'll have him. But let's see the threshold of braking as the number 1 just streams on by again. It's almost like he doesn't even have to go to the brake, just gives it a bit of a brush to settle the car down and through the S as he goes.
You'd be pulling those belts tight when you're coming to turn 1 and go, all right, here we go, send it.
So he does. Danny Siama trying to do the same thing, trying to send it here, the number 15 on the 48 of Vollebrek. Tony started out of P4. He's gone back to 5th, but Danny Siama started off rear of grid, and he has made his way up to P6 at the moment. So that's a great drive. Gee, we've had some great drives from rear of field over this weekend. Really good racing right across the board.
I mean, that's what Winton brings, right? You know, it's the track that, it's the action track, isn't it?
Well, and it throws up the randomness,
Yeah.
doesn't it? It really does. You've got to have a car that can get power down firstly. That's the main thing here at Winton. You've got to get power down. But then you've also got to be able to change direction.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Horsepower doesn't give you automatic rights here, and
It's nice. If you can get the power down with lots of horsepower, then you're home and hosed here. But that's a juxtaposition in itself at Winton.
absolutely. So Danny just getting a little bit of drifting going on there. It's great to see modern versus classic in this style. You know, a modern MG versus a classic MG. One's a V8, one's a 4-cylinder, one's small, one's a bit bigger, front-wheel drive. Modern brakes versus classic brakes, just a whole different way to achieve lap time, but so similar. Tony's car won't have that knockoff as you go into the race. It won't lose as much out of its tyres, won't overheat its brakes as quick as Danny's car. So if Tony can hold on for a few more laps, he's probably going to end up being able to pull a bit of a gap. But I can tell you, Danny drives that car like it's a bucking Bronco, so he will be fighting that car to the death.
He is absolutely having a red hot go at it. It really is a great snapshot of how the automotive world has matured, isn't it? You need half the amount of pistons, you can drive it through the front wheels,
Yep.
and you can get the job done. Fairly similar lap times at the moment. But the number 15 gives the roar, and he looks to the inside now.
Small little error by Tony into turn 1, just brought Danny back into the game a little bit here. So I think he had probably a better last lap, but that little bit of a gap, just that little mistake into 1, just brought Danny back into it. You only have to give Danny a sniff and he'll be all over it. So we come up to the back of the track. This is where Danny will always be a little bit under-tired around here for the change of direction compared to Tony's car. So Tony's just got to play the straight game. So we see Gordon Bunyan pulling off on the run to turn 3, unfortunately. So he and Greg White will... So
Yeah, right out the front of the old pit straight there, pit building, pit bay there.
not sure
Is
what's
where
happened
he's
there.
gone. He's just sort of come in the out lane, hasn't he?
He has, yeah. So hopefully not too terminal, but he is out of this one. That'll give Greg White a little bit of relief after he was telling me that it was like having a terrier. He's now got a few laps of ease.
This battle would be interesting at the next round at Phillip Island on the 27th and 28th of May. Up the inside, Danny sends it, tries to grab the spot, but Vollebrek just holds him off. Great bit of racing here from these two. I'm going to suggest that maybe the number 15 at the long, wide open expanses at Phillip Island might just find an advantage. That
Yeah.
capacity advantage would come to the fore. He's got the inside running for turn 1 now. It tunnels in. It funnels in, not tunnels in. And gets the job done for the moment. But Vollebrek is still flowing that front-wheel drive car nicely. You get You get the feeling, Paul, you mentioned it before, Danny is definitely hustling this thing.
Yeah, that looks like a bucking bronco right now. That is moving around on him a lot, but driving it very well. But on the ragged edge, you can tell to achieve that. So we'll see if he can make a bit of a gap on Tony. This might actually be something Tony can run with him, and as this race counts down, he might be able to have another little bit of a dip. Definitely, you would imagine getting a bit of fresh air into those classic tyres and classic brakes will definitely help over the long length of this race versus sitting there tucked in behind. There's a little bit of lock up by Tony, and that'll be the difference between Tony getting to his normal braking marker and a classic car that's just starting to get a bit of a long brake pedal.
Yeah, certainly pinched it up there. Tyres protesting on trying to change direction as well. The 48 getting on with it now. Have a look at this. Side by side. But the V8 just extends its capacity and a bit of a switchback to the inside there. Danny didn't see that coming, did he? Or he allowed it to happen around him. Here comes car number 40 and car number 66 leading the way there. Here's the battle. A couple of Triumphs going head-to-head with each other here.
They are. This is a great little battle. Unfortunately, Mike Trathen's just dropped off the back of them, so hopefully nothing too serious there, and maybe just Mike getting a bit worn out, but this is a great battle. Again, they just achieved their lap time so differently. On screen, Bruce Condren come down from New South Wales to have a run. Great feedback. I mean, his comment to me for this one is he came up and shook my hand and said, there is nothing like this Vic State Race Series up north, and he said this is so good. So huge compliments for Vic State Racing.
It is certainly the 888 Home Loans Victorian State Race Series, battling it out for the Victorian State Championships. These two, you get the feeling that these two are going to go all the way to Phillip Island / Calder, wherever the last round may be for this year. But certainly that AFL Grand Final time of the year at Phillip Island has been a great way to send the Victorian Championship off each year. Always look forward to getting down to the mini club round promoted down there on the 23rd to the 22nd to the 23rd of September. Get out of the rat race, get out of the aerial ping pong finals, and come to Phillip Island and watch the motorsport finals. There it is up on screen. Next round, 26th, 27th, 8th, and 28th of May at Phillip Island. Check it all out down there. Sandown, 11, 12, 13 of August. Super accessible racetrack. Anyone from Melbourne's only half an hour away. Straight off Eastlink, straight into the track, up on Red Hill. Enjoy a great day at the races. Probably bring a blanket or a nice warm jacket at that time of the year. And then Phillip Island, 22nd, 20th to the 24th. Oh, well, you don't need it. Oh, side by side down into one. You don't need it. You sit in the grandstand. Great place. At the back of the grandstand so you don't get the rain on you. Have a look at this. These two Triumphs sweating it out. A couple of veterans going for it. I say wily veterans too. Down the bottom of the screens now for those watching on the 888 Home Loans coverage. vsrs.com.au. Find out all the information. If you want to do some officiating or something like that, get on there. All the club's details are on there that promote these events. Or you can go to Motorsport Australia and get involved as well. As we look back, now this is still the battle that is just out, or just, I guess, going for the top 5. At the moment, it's Tony Vollebrecht who's got it over Danny Siama, and that's switched around. So we're getting deeper into this race. 5.5 minutes left to go. So we've had 20 minutes of battling, and just off the back of camera there, we saw Phil Chester going through. Last time round, a 141.2. That is not what we want to see out of the Monty Power car.
I think he's ready for
Easing out of it.
Smoko.
It's ready for Smoko. Either that or he's getting his mind right for one lunge at the lap record. There he is, race leader. And he is just driving very nicely there indeed. Well and truly within himself at the moment. There's that flashing right-hand light again as he comes across the line. 10 laps completed. You'd have to say 13 will be the distance here. Last lap around a 138.6, so he's dropped 2 seconds out of it. He's winding up the Monty Power outfit as he got himself another lap to get it right, and then a really big push on lap number 12 for some pace. Because at this pace, if any of the old protagonists, Robin Bailey was here, or if the old green car was here, he'd be certainly under a lot of pressure.
That's a good point. If anyone wants an outright car, Vince Gucciardo has one for sale still.
Still for sale?
Still for sale.
What a car.
you want to come racing and take it up to Phil Chester, it's a cracking car.
It is absolutely worth checking out. If you think this is your kind of thing, that car has got all the bells and whistles on it. This one's quite the opposite. This is in pretty much full period spec.
Yeah, as I say, he's campaigned this for just over 20 years now. Had an absolute ball in it. Didn't do a lot of racing in Adelaide in recent years because he gets lumped in sports cars, and as you can imagine, just doesn't work. But absolutely loving coming over to Victoria and having a ball. Brings his mates, they make a road trip, have a great weekend away.
Bruce Condren now. He's gone to pit lane in car number 5.
Hey!
Ooh, keep it off. Yeah. Well, that's good. You just got to dust it off, don't you, after that? That's spinning around there with solid objects
He
around.
might be a bit dizzy too, I reckon, after that.
That'll throw it up to you. Puts the fire back in the belly, and the Urban DC gets back underway. Pretty disgusted with himself, I'd say, by the looks of things.
He will be ropeable with himself for that one. Danny prides himself on driving very, very hard, and to throw it away, probably tyres just a bit beyond it, chasing Tony Voller right there.
Phil Chester doesn't look to be getting too aggressive with it here just at this point in time. He's got himself a 9-second lead over Keith Ondaatje. So Keith's gone through again on Trevor Lindsay. And they're keeping it real out there, those two. The number 40 Triumph Stag and the number 66 Triumph GT6. In fact, the gap between Phil Chester and Keith Ondaatje is coming back. So I would suggest that certainly Keith Ondaatje's last lap around on lap 11 has done his fastest lap of the race. That's this guy we're looking at here, car 40, doing a brilliant job.
Yeah, managing to drop Trevor. He's probably just got his eyes forward. He's doing it, Danny. We just put the mockers on him, Daz.
Next
Again.
shot, please, director. Next shot, please, director. Oh, just acknowledging each other. A couple of triumphs.
I think Trevor was just going, I'll see you. I'll see you later, mate. I'll see you at the pub.
Yep. Oh, look at this. Stratton be going, what are you doing, mate? And I was trying to flow it round here, trying to get the fire in the belly of the number 40. What a shame there for Keith Ondaatje. Even worse, the cameras were all over him as well. So
He's not going to live that one down on the way home, is he?
Right. It's a long drive home too. With the suns like this, gets you nice and warm in the cabin. And you've made a mistake like that in the last minute and a half of the race. Phil Chester last time round at 136.95, so he's eased down. His best lap was 136.32, and we are on the last lap. So Phil on the second last lap has gone his second fastest lap of the race. He's now just sort of starting to catch a little bit of traffic as well. So if he's trying to ease one out on the last lap here, P. Brock 1979 A9 X Tirana style, last lap record. No, he's bobbled up behind the number 9 here. And White just opens it up, says, righto, there you go. You've definitely got twice the amount of cylinders of me. You've probably got more than twice the capacity I've got. And definitely more than twice the tyre width there as well, just getting a good shot of the back of the period MGB versus the current spec MGB GT V8.
What it started life out as.
Yeah, correct. It's amazing, isn't it, what they can look like? You too can have one that looks like this.
Yes, indeed.
And there'd be those out there that would say, why would I want to do that to my GB?
Yeah, it's an awesome bit of kit. And all these front-running cars, shame Simon Elliott not here for the last race as well, but they're just an amazing piece of machinery. If you do get a chance, go and have a look at these. They're probably akin to a bit of a sports sedan / a sports car. Awesome pieces of machinery.
Checkered flag at the ready for Phil Chester. He didn't take it to him quite as much as what we thought he might have here in this race, but he's eased it across the line. And I would suggest, Paul, that might be a bit of a signal that he's enjoyed this weekend. He might be planning to do a little bit more racing in Victoria.
Absolutely. I think he has loved every minute of having horsepower back under his right foot. He's keen. So we see Alana Ondaatje has come to a stop at the last corner on just on pit entry. So not sure what's happened. She's waving, so she's okay. But yeah, that's a shame. Tough way to finish the weekend for Alana.
It actually could be waving to her fans that have just gone, Alana.
Or she's waving to Dad to say, I saw your stop, just want to make sure you go going again.
Thank you, Paul, for colouring that in. As Dad in car number 40 comes across the line in P4. was running in P2 right up until that penultimate lap there. So Phil Chester will take the victory and 90 points away from this weekend. Trevor Lindsay is just stamping his badge of authority on this title chase, and he takes out 62 points from the weekend. So there it is officially by 30 seconds. Phil Chester beats Trevor Lindsay to Michael Trathen. Keith Ondaatje home in fourth, and sadly was set for a second place finish there, home in fourth. Anthony Vollebrecht in fifth. John Illingworth in the big 22 Saloon home in sixth. That's a good drive. Danny Siama was further up, but had his own issue there towards the end. Greg White, Alana Ondaatje home in 9, spinning on the last lap there. Jeff St John Cox there as well. Bruce Condren went to the lane, and I'm pretty sure everyone down from Gordon Bunyan were non-finishers, so Bunyan and non-starters there. So that rounds out the weekend for the MG and invited British sports cars. Paul Vanel, thank you so much for your time across the racing for the MG and invited British cars.
Thanks, Daz. Been awesome to be here. Looking forward to the next one.